Hey everyone, it's Rob with Four Songs. I know it's been a while. It's going to be like this for the next couple months. I just don't have the time to put these out at the same schedule as I used to. But hey, stick with me, be patient, go hit that subscribe button. Do me a favor and share this with a friend, because if you like this stuff, if you like this music, chances are your friends will too. And before I get into the meat of this episode, I got a question for you. In the off chance that any of us listening have the opportunity to spend an hour in the car with one of our musical heroes, and you're driving, which means you get to pick the music, what would you play? What albums would you play? But just think about that, because as my next guest will tell you, who had that opportunity, it's actually an incredibly stressful decision. Emily Capell is a singer from Northwest London. As she'll tell you, she loves The Clash. In fact, we were talking from her home via Zoom in Northwest London. There's a picture of the band in the background. And as you all know, I love The Clash too. So it was pretty clear this is going to be a fun interview for me. But as you'll find out, her influences go a lot deeper. We talk about Blondie. We talk about the Beastie Boys. We talk about a cover version of Blondie's Rapture that she did at the height of the pandemic. And you know, Rapture at the end when Debbie Harry does that big, long rap. Well, Emily does one too, and she kind of changes it up a bit. There's a line on her rap where she says, "What an outrage it is to be my age. I miss Mike D, Ad Rock, and MCA." Obviously a Beastie Boys reference. That line just resonated with me, not because I was a huge Beastie Boys fan when I was younger, but because I was a huge Clash fan. And like Emily, I missed their heyday. I missed their band. I missed their tours. I had the records, but, I didn't get to see them live. But there's a feeling that when you miss something, you regret it, even though you had nothing to do with it. You just think like, why couldn't I have been born earlier? Why couldn't I have seen that band in their heyday? But you know what's great about this podcast is I got to meet people like Emily Capell, because there's so much good music nowadays. And it gives me inspiration to talk to someone like Emily, who's just putting out such great material, such a fresh new face, that there really is hope for the world, to hear good new music these days. It's a blessing, and I hope that you all agree with me about that. We talk about Emily's 2019 solo album called Combat Frock. I didn't hear it until the pandemic hit, and I got to tell you, I don't know if it was just the mood I was in when I heard it, the mood of the country, the mood of the world, but boy, what a breath of fresh air. There are two songs we talk about from Combat Frock. We talk about Bonanza and Ipso Calypso. And then we talk about two other songs. One of them you probably heard, the other one maybe not. The first one was a song that she did with a band called Dreadzone. Dreadzone is a band that's been around for actually a couple, almost 20-some years now. They make up the rhythm section of Big Artie Dynamite. So that's drummer Greg Roberts and bass player Leo Easy Kill Williams. They did a song together recently called Flamingo. It's on Dreadzone's newest album, which is coming out in a couple weeks, actually. Flamingo is a brilliant song, lyrically and musically. And it's about the Profumo affair, which is a mid-60s scandal in England. But then we talk about a song called E equals MC squared. And if you know that song, you know Big Artie Dynamite. So let me get back to my question earlier. If you know the band BAD, you probably know Don Letts. And if you know The Clash, you know Don Letts because he was one of those original punk rockers way back in the day. Don, as you'll hear, actually wanted Emily to sing on a new version of E equals MC squared. Now, the version that we talk about is the dub version. There is actually a straightforward one that has not been released publicly, and I'm dying to hear it because it sounds amazing just based on the dub version that you hear. Anyway, Emily talks about how stressful it was to drive around in the car with Don Letts and what music she played. Just keep that in the back of your mind as you're listening because it is just a fantastic interview. So I'm going to just stop talking. I've been blabbering enough. Please welcome Emily Capell to Four Songs. Emily, thank you for joining me for Four Songs. It's great to have you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I started this whole thing during the pandemic, and it's now we're almost 2 years into it. So how's life been for you the last couple of years?
It's been tricky. It's been okay. So we were due to fly away to Dubai and do the Madness tour, but that got pulled kind of like 24 hours before we were due to fly out. And that still hasn't happened. We haven't had that rescheduled yet. So it was tricky, but we kept going, sort of, as much as we could. And it's been tricky, but you just got to crack on with it, really.
Yeah. Well, so I've been to London twice, and the first time was back in 2003, right around that. There's a heat wave going on back then, and I guess it was about 8 months after Joe Strummer had died. And for someone, I grew up outside of Washington, D.C., and listening to the Clash back then, it was like, where are these people from? Like, it's just like they're on the moon or something. But then when I went to London, I was walking around some of those neighborhoods. I really felt like I understood where that music came from, and it seems like there's something about London and the mix of cultures that comes into that city, that part of the world, that I don't think you really get anywhere else. And I'm just curious from your perspective. I mean, what is it about London that brings these cultures together like that?
I think you're totally right, actually. Yeah, there's so much. Nobody's the same here, and everybody's ancestry is totally different as well. What I think brings it together, I don't know, really. It's getting harder because London is now so expensive. So a lot of us are either still at home or moving out of London. Yeah, still living with our mum and dads, I mean, or moving out of London. So that's harder. But yeah, it just seems to be I take it for granted perhaps that there's so much culture here. I live in northwest London, and so there's things like the Notting Hill Carnival, and we have loads of really cool stuff that we celebrate here. And yeah, I suppose, yeah, it's just London. I guess I take that for granted.
Yeah. Well, so it's kind of speaking of the Clash and music, but I came across your cover of Rapture from Blondie on YouTube, and I love the rap you did at the end. And well, the line I liked the best was, "It's an outrage to be of my age, Miss Mike, Adrock, Mike D, and MCA." And that really hit me because, when I was probably like 12 or 13 when I discovered the Clash, at that point they were no longer existing, but the offshoots were around. But it just made me realize, like, I know what you mean when you're like, I miss that. Just by like totally. 5 or 6 years, it's so frustrating.
Yeah, I got the pandemic. When the pandemic hit, it was my birthday, and my parents bought me the Beastie Boys story, a big book about the Beastie Boys, and we used to have a newspaper here called the New Musical Express, The Enemy. And they used to do this thing called My Album Story. And every week they would write about an album that you had to get. Most weeks I would try, this was when I was much younger, when I was in my teens, and I would try and buy that album. Or if we already had it, I'd like go back and listen to the album. And one week it was Paul's Boutique by the Beastie Boys. And I was like, oh God, like this is I can't deal with, like, and there's one track where it's just banjos. Like I can't deal with this. And then my mum and dad bought me the Beastie Boys book for my birthday. There was the Beastie Boys film on Apple TV. And because it was the pandemic, I watched that. And then I read the book and got out my old copy of Paul's Boutique. And I was like, God, this is amazing. I can't believe. And obviously, I'm a big fan of Big Audio Dynamite. So I like that sampling kind of thing. And the Beastie Boys were a couple of years after that. Paul's Boutique album is 1992 and Big Audio Dynamite is the late 80s. The Beastie Boys in the book, they fly over to London and they meet Big Audio Dynamite. And when I was working with Dawn and Greg and Leo, I was like, look, you're in the Beastie Boys book. And I devoured everything I could about the Beastie Boys.
So this is a podcast, though, about songs and songwriting. And I know we just talked a lot about the Clash and the Beastie Boys, but I just wonder, from when you started writing, what were some of your biggest influences? And just did anyone kind of take you under their wing and say, okay, here's how you write? And what were some of the lessons that you still use today when it comes to just writing music and lyrics?
So I've started writing lyrics. I'm much better at writing lyrics than I am writing music. If anybody is a guitarist that hears my songs, I mean, there's nothing special in there. Like, I'll just play the same chords and then I'll put a capo on it and play the same chords again, and then I'll just keep doing it up the fretboard. That's
country music.
Totally, like that's the best way to do it. But lyrically, I kind of started writing songs. When I was much younger, when I started writing songs, I really liked Frank Sinatra and standards. So I would write songs about like toddling into town and that kind of thing. And then I bought a guitar when Joe Strummer had just died, 10. And a lot of people were like, oh, you learn to play the guitar because you learn to play other people's songs. But I couldn't figure it out. So I had to write my own because I couldn't play anybody else's. So and it's that clash thing of like, you write about what you know.
Well, we're here to talk about 4 of your songs, and 2 of them from Combat Frock, your most recent album. They'll talk about Bonanza and Ipso Calypso, and then 2 newer singles with some well-known collaborators. You have Flamingo with Dreadzone, and then E equals MC squared, which is like my favorite Big Art Dynamite song. It was like the first one that I just fell in love with, and just a beautiful version of it, by the way. So we'll get to that one last because that's just amazing. But we'll start with Combat Frock, though, which had, I guess you said you were fortunate that it came out, you were able to get a tour in before the world shut down, but it also came out right before the world shut down. So what's it like listening to that now?
Sword. Yeah.
What's it like when you listen to that album now, just kind of knowing like what was gonna, and then obviously you didn't know at the time that we are where we are, but just when you hear it now, you're just like, wow, things are just so different now. So
I don't hear it now. I never come home and put myself on. If it comes on, I'm a bit like, I'll turn that off. Like I can't. I don't listen to me. But I don't know. I don't know about you, but because of the pandemic, I kind of have lost track of time. It only feels like yesterday that it came out. Really, I kind of felt like we lost a year. But I'm very proud of Combat Frock. Very proud of it. There's nothing I would change about it. Really nothing.
So because when I hear it now, because I didn't come across it until we were in the pandemic, and it was such a refreshing listen. Like, oh my gosh, there is still good in the world. Thank you for putting that out, because everything at the time was just like the world's going to end, or everything was just so bleak. And then hearing something like that, and it's interesting because we were talking about the influences going back to Sinatra, but there's just something fresh and positive about it. It almost sounds new in a way. So for that, just more power to you. That's awesome. How does that come together? Like, I guess the better way to ask that is who's in your band, and like how do you to work with them? Like, do you come forward? You say you write lyrics first, but does it just kind of go from there, or how does the music all come together?
So I had 6 or 7 tracks already to go for Combat Frock, and there was a couple. There was 5. I'd say that I didn't want to use on the album purely because they either sounded too similar to another song, which I'm such a nightmare for, or I just wanted to write new stuff, because we'd done an EP, we'd done 3 EPs, and then I wanted to put new stuff on the album. I didn't want people buying the same stuff. So most of them I'd already written myself, and then tracks like I Found a Footballer to Marry Me and 101 Waterton Road I wrote with my guitarist, and the second album is all written that way. Okay. It's all written with him. They're not the musicality, the melody and the lyrics are mine, but the tracks are his, which is nice. I sort of found my Mick Jones way, you know what I mean.
Well, let's start with Bonanza, which is one of the catchiest songs I've heard in a long time, and just the way it starts and the bass. And
it's a doo-wop. That's heavily doo-wop influenced Bonanza. The Clash. I'm going to keep going on about the Clash. The Clash wrote Magnificent Seven, and I googled a country and western TV program because Magnificent Seven was one, a film. And then I was Googling either a film or TV show with a country and western thing, and a program called Bonanza came up. So I took the name Bonanza from that because I wanted to write a Clash. So that's a big old fat nod to the Clash. And then, and yeah, it's got that bomb, 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 doo-woppy kind of feel to it. I wrote that years ago. My previous management hated me playing it because they said it was boring. They were like, you say bonanza too many times in it. So every time we used to play it live, I used to dedicate it to my manager.
I think it's brilliant because I like, because to me it's the way you write it, lyrically. It's and there's something about, I don't know if I'm going to articulate this in a great way, but it feels like it's almost a personal song. Like you said, you write about your life a lot, but you write it in a way that it feels like we're all with you, if that makes sense. It's clear.
And it was lyrically, a lot of my friends had gone to university or college for you guys at the time. I went down to this music college in Brighton where a lot of my friends had gone, and they were all posh, white, middle-class kids taking drugs. And I was just like, I can't be doing this. So I can't stand a posh boy when he's high, but we'll be fine. I'm just so aware of our class divide. It's sort of all that. I don't go to uni. I try to build a family. Why even bother? I can't afford to get a degree. So it was all written sort of when everybody was at university, and I would go down and see him and just be like, this is the biggest waste of time. And like, I don't know about in America, but like in here, it's so much money. And especially music uni, like you're not going to walk into a record label and go, hi, I've got a degree in jazz. Can I have a record label like deal? Like, it don't work like that. So it's just like, why there?
Yeah, well, I like the Joe Strummer line there on the bridge. You got a photo of Joe Strummer.
Oh yeah. So when I played at Glastonbury Festival, and I did a thing with Billy Bragg, and Billy Bragg sort of sat there and I was sat here, and you take it in turns to do songs. It was mental. He really laughed at that line, and he was like, I've got a photo with Joe Strummer on my camera, and I was like, oh, it's a bit awkward.
Yeah, so you mentioned the saxophone. Who's playing sax on that?
My amazing sax player, Dan. He's playing sax on that. Yeah, it was like when we were demoing it, it was like, do more. And there's a great song by a band called the Mystery Jets called Two Doors Down. It's like the biggest 80s ripoff ever. There's a massive, great big fat sax. And I think I sent him that solo. So there's stuff from all, there's the 80s sax, and then there's the 60s BBs, and then there's the doo-wop chorus, and then there's the lyrics that is like me. So yeah, it's a good one, Bonanza, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, just as I was saying, just the way the sounds all come together, the different, you're just saying the different decades, and it comes in across like it's just something fresh and new. And so
thank you.
Yeah, so we got an Ipso Calypso, which is funny because when I first heard it, because I just think back to the Big Going Dynamite 2 song Kool-Aid, which starts out with that welcome to the Dipso Calypso, and then there's also the Celia Cruz song Ipso Calypso, and it's also a candy, right?
Yeah, that's what I secretly wanted. I wanted an advert. Don't tell the Beastie Boys; they wouldn't have been pleased with that. Yeah, Ipso Calypso. So Ipso Calypso is heavily influenced by a song by the Angels called My Boyfriend's Back.
Yes.
My boyfriend's back and it's gonna be... Yeah, that one.
You tell me who's hot and who's not, who sells out all their shows and who's giving it all they got. Cause the rich are getting richer, but there's such a big divide. I don't understand, I'm just on the other side, with the mods and the slubs and like no job sluts. But don't at me, cause I'm giving it all I got. If there's one more space on your rock and roller coaster, I'm CAPELL for your poster.
The thing with Ipso is that, because at the time when I wrote that, I was gigging a lot on my own. And when you gig on your own, you have to have dynamics in songs. So it's quite nice. I can play it with the guitar part is just one note. Do, 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 do.
Put a ring upon your hand. Turn around, baby, pull that knife from your back. How's a guy like me meant to meet your mom and dad? Billy Boy may alternate, but a staggerly time. I'ma spell my name one more time. Check it. Ipso, 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 Calypso. Yeah, yeah, Ipso, 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 Calypso. You know mama wear Ipso.
So it's quite nice when you're playing on your own. You don't start a song like just with a chord the same way most songs start. So yeah, I don't know what Ipso Calypso is. I wish I could tell you that it was something, but I'm not sure. Calypso, going back to the Frank Sinatra love, there's a film called High Society that he's in, and Louis Armstrong does the High Society Calypso, which is brilliant. So I kind of wanted to get a kind of calypso-y. That's where that influence came from, that Louis Armstrong. I love it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This song really stood out to me because exactly like you said, that My Boyfriend's Back. I mean, just like the rhythm, the way the verses, and I like the lyrics because it feels like you're kind of talking about the music scene in a way, and at least the beginning, just giving all you.
Totally.
I also like the Twitter reference there. Don't at me because I'm giving them all I got. That's clever. That's really cool.
Social media is so influential. Like some people say really funny things on social media, and I always write it down because they're really funny. Like you can find some really funny stuff. Don't at me was a debate I watched, and somebody was like, "Well, don't at me," and the person who they were debating was like, "What?" So it was really funny. So I just did it in it. So
yeah, well, it works there too. I mean, that's what's so good about it. And so, I mean, it's funny because like I said, it does feel like a commentary on the music industry at parts of it, and it feels like you grew up listening to The Clash and others, that the industry is completely different now than even was like 5 or 10 years ago. I mean, this is going to sound like a really stupid question, but you're in it. I mean, how hard is it to do this nowadays?
Without sounding like Morrissey, it is unbelievably difficult. In the past 3 months, I have watched nearly every band I came up with stop. Bands that I never thought would stop have had to stop. Like most weeks, I see it online. There is just no money. There is no money, and there is hardly any venues anymore. It is a lot of it is heritage acts. And I know that if you look at a festival lineup, some of these bands, you're like, blimey, are they still alive? And it's like, yeah, they're still, and I do a radio show, and I like to play really old stuff, but I also like to play new bands, and there aren't any. There honestly aren't any, and I thank Joe Strummer that I could work with Dreadzone, because if I hadn't have worked with Dreadzone and Don, right now there's a second album written and we can't go in and record it because there's no money to go in and record it. There's no money. And like, I'm having meetings with people with it written, completely demoed, completely done. And I'm like, please, will you put it out? And like my booking agent at the beginning of the pandemic, it was a great, I know that I'm biased because I'm me, but it was just such an incredible booking agent. So it's not just bands, so it's him. Now he now cleans offices as his job, because he earns more from cleaning offices, and they were just cutting back so much that, and it's not just him, it's like there's lighting engineers, there's sound engineers, there's just nothing, like there's no venues, but I know I sound like Morrissey, but I mean, I don't know what we're going to do. I don't know how we're going to put the second album out right now. I know we will. That's why I'm so grateful for Dreadzone.
Well, so speaking of Dreadzone, let's talk about Flamingo, which I believe was written and recorded during the pandemic. Is that right?
Written and recorded during the pandemic, yeah. So they're on the same agent as me. Greg from Dreadzone, who's like their musical director, he was watching a program about a girl called Christine Keeler, but in our government in the early 50s, she had an affair with a top member of parliament, and it nearly brought down the government at that time. It was like really this massive scandal, and it's called the Profumo affair, and it was a big scandal, the Christine Keeler scandal, and there was a TV show that was on about it just at the beginning of lockdown, I think. She's from Uxbridge, Christine Keeler originally, which is not too far away from me. Greg from Dreadzone rang me and was like, have you seen this Christine Keeler program? And I tried to write with Dreadzone before, but they don't get political in their lyrics at all. We are so polar opposites. So they sing songs about like peace and love and let's all get high, and you know what their thing is, life, love and unity, and like they all are, and I'm there like, no, we've got to sing about like what Joe Strummer would have wanted us to sing about. He was like, will you watch this program and write about Christine Keeler? I did, and he sent me a track. The thing about Dreadzone is that they give you a name of a song. So he goes, I want to call it Flamingo, and I was like, what? Where the hell's that come from? Like, and I hadn't seen the program. I was like, what the heck is there? Do they get attacked by birds? Like, what's going on? And then there's a club in Soho that incidentally my granddad used to go to, and a guy called Georgie Fame. Yeah, mental. Georgie Fame used to sing there, and different mods and stuff used to go there. Christine Keeler used to go there. I sent him Flamingo, and then they cut it all up and they rearrange it.
Oh, really?
And then he'll say, right, yeah, that is not what I sent him. Like, totally not what I sent him. And then he would ring me and go, you need to put another couplet in there. Like the chorusy bit, I think so he's repeated that. It was a part of a verse. So like, if we ever had to do that live, I'd have to go back and like, it's not what I sang. I'd never done anything like that before.
This is my story, the story of my life, the Christine Keeler story.
This is where it's at. There's no going back.
Young, gifted, and forgot. I'm fine, twisted, and hot. It feels like I'm losing the plot. Young, gifted, and what? And that's where it's at.
it was great. And they do about 90,000 mixes. It's mental. Every day I would get a new mix, and sometimes I wouldn't hear any changes in it, and I'd be like, oh yeah, it's great. I've no idea what you've done, but yeah, it's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, because I mean, the lyrics I think are fantastic, because you're talking about, as you described earlier, it's a bit of a tragic figure, it sounds like, but love this incredible life, espionage, and government scandal. I mean, how'd you pack that into basically 2 minutes and 40 seconds? I mean,
and with Dreadzone, you can't get political at all, so you have to be really you can't go to town about the Tory MPs and like support women as much as they do support women. They don't want to sing songs about things like that. So I don't know, really. It's quite nice to write, to be given a brief. It was quite nice to do that. And I used to write monologues for people.
Okay.
I kind of did the whole monologue thing again, where it's quite nice. So I could watch the program and like make little notes, and then so pick up on like words they use.
I liked how you used just the way you kind of rhymed. And this again, I mean, as someone, because in my younger days, I thought I would be like a writer one day and then write music, but I just never had I just couldn't do it lyrically. I just struggled with it. And it seems so effortless to you, at least when I hear like a song like this, I think like, can you concisely explain this incredibly complicated story in so few words? But I feel like the way you wrote it, you really do empower her in a way, if that makes sense.
I'm always of course.
Yeah,
I'm always going to empower her, totally. But like as well, in my lyrics, there's always a Clash reference.
There's a mash at the Flamingo where people come and they go. Just like with the perfume of the girls who speak bilingual. But I hear London cooling too early in the morning. I come running out into the arms of lucky Gordon.
Yeah, all right, sister. Looking for something.
That's where it's at.
I think she's got it.
They'll go and take you away. So baby, I'll be on my way. Crying, come and make my day. I will kiss if you will pay. I stand at the back, but then I fall onto the curve. They say, there goes that girl. I hope she gets what she deserves. Come and meet me in my vision. How drifted and in prison.
the more you listen to this song, the more you hear, and just like it gets better and better. So just
Thank you. Really, really, really proud of her.
yeah. Well, so the last song. Thank you so much for giving me so much of your time. I guess it's evening where you are. It's still kind of morning-ish here.
It's mid-afternoon here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's still sunny out. Yeah. E equals MC squared, which is, like I said earlier, is like my favorite. I think it is my favorite Big Eye Dynamite song. I mean, so how did this come together for you with working with Don Letts, and just what was the recording of this like?
So I was here, right where I am, and as I said, I have a radio show. I was doing my radio show, and I got a text from Greg from Dreadzone, and they know I am the world's biggest Clash fan. Being with them is sometimes tricky enough. Like I can't. Sometimes I'm like, oh my god, like the things that I can't. And I fangirl like you wouldn't believe. I'm not cool about it. So I hadn't met Don Letts. It was kind of like they would say things and they'd say, oh, Don. And I was like, woo, like my ears would pick up and I'd be like, oh my God. And I was doing my radio show here and I had a text from Greg and he said, my friend Donovan is looking for a female vocal. I've given him your number. He's going to call you later tonight. And I was doing a radio show and I just text back, okay, cool. And I thought, I wonder if it's Dan Donovan from Big Audio Dynamite. That's where I went. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay. So anyway, I did the radio show and at 7:00, I was eating a Twix. And you might not have Twixes over there.
Oh, we do.
Like a biscuit. My phone rang and Don Letts over here. So obviously I'm the biggest Clash fan and I know who Don Letts is, but he's also got a radio show on something called BBC Six Music, which is like, you know, I'd sell my firstborn child to get back on the week on Six Music. Like that's, you know, so I know his voice. So I answered my phone and you know who it is, like instantly. So I put, just like trying to swallow this mouth of Twix and talk to Don Letts. And he was like, right, I've got this song. I want to go in and do E=mc². This guy called Gaudi, and I want you to sing it. And he was saying it to me as if I didn't know what E=mc² was. I was in this band before. I know, and I'm there like, oh, I don't know exactly what it is. And so he sent me the lyric, and he also sent me another track as well, which we also did. It hasn't come out yet. It's not a big Audio Dynamite song. It's a song for Japan. So in this phone call, he said, I'd like you to do E=mc², and I want you to sing this song in Japanese. So if Don Letts rings you and says, can you sing in Japanese? You go, of course I can sing in Japanese. Yeah, definitely. So I was like, brilliant. Yeah, of course I can do that. And inside you're going, oh my God, how on earth am I going to do that? So before we did E=mc², we did the Japanese song. So by the time I went in to do that, I'd already kind of met him. So when we went over to do E=mc², I drove over in my car and picked up Don Letts and drove him to the studio. The stress of what to pick to play musically in the car was like stress I have never felt. I just didn't know what to play. And also I didn't want to put anything on shuffle in case something came on. Like we've got a pop band over here called McFly, who I sort of secretly love with my friends and my school friends. Although I'm a massive Clash fan, like I do on my iTunes have a little McFly playlist. So I was like, what if McFly comes on? Like, what am I going to do? Anyway, so I drove over, and for an hour it was just me and Don Letts in the car. So yeah, and then we got to the studio and.
Well, what song did you play? What music did you play?
It was, as what music did I play? I actually chickened out and I played a Clash album.
Okay.
But then I was a bit like, I played Give 'Em Enough Rope. But yeah, it was unreal of like, oh God. We went over to the studio and did E=mc². It was great. It was everything that you kind of thought it would be.
Why do you play as a cheap I don't like music.
Comical little geezer, and you will pass it.
But it never loses its, oh my God, that's Don Letts.
Yeah. Well, and just that song. I mean, so was this all done like in one day, it sounds like?
All done in one day, and then they did a dub mix of it. And then have you got I think it's the dub mix that you've probably got. And then I've got the full vocal.
Oh.
Yeah. I play it on my radio show a lot. Yeah, it was really bonkers, because that was kind of like the first single as well. He did the Late Night Tales compilation, which is what it's from. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of like, I think it was definitely released as a single. It got a lot of radio play over here. But I mean, like my lockdown, I never thought some people lost everything, and then somehow Joe Strummer shunned down from punk rock heaven, and I'm working with Don Letts. It's like,
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, that's my favorite song. That chorus. I mean, I can't even tell you how many times I would sing along to that chorus. Said I got into the Clash kind of by accident. I was really young and my friends were into punk rock and I got cut the crap, which is not the best introduction to the band, but I liked it. And I was 13 or 14 and just kept digging in. And back then, I didn't have any money and I had to go to cassette stores and Sam Goody, we'd go to the mall or something and buy these on cassettes. And then my friend told me about Big Eye Dynamite and like, oh my God, Mick Jones is still performing. And so then again, just kind of had to dig in but I was actually like I was 15, I think, when Rush came out. And
right.
Just to think, oh my God, I'm alive and they're putting out a new single.
I know, right? You beat me.
Yeah.
So lucky. They toured not a couple of years ago. They reformed and they went to America. I don't know if you got a chance to see them.
No, they didn't come here. I got to see them in college, actually, in this tiny little club in DC. And it was, I think, one of the last tours. This is when they were still, it was like probably Big Eye Dynamite 3 at that point because they didn't have Don Lutz. They didn't have anyone from either of those two bands, but it was still, I mean, I didn't care because it was Mick Jones and
totally.
I think Rankin Roger was with them at that time.
Yes, that's right.
Cool. Yeah.
But that's really cool regardless.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Well, so I want to
thank you. It's really interesting to hear like who caught what, especially in America. Like I don't know what timeline you guys got it, and obviously your age and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I caught them. I got to see they reformed. I think I was 16. I got to see them there, but that was cool. Yeah,
well, it's just funny how music travels. It just gets across the country or the world. And so, well, speaking of, I think thank you so much for your time tonight, Emily. I know it's getting late where you are, sort of, and just so what's next? You said you have an album and.
Yeah, so we have an album. So my first album is called Combat Frock. Dreadzone boys have named my second album Sander's Sister, which I keep accidentally saying. I can't do that. I can't keep nicking from the Clash. But right now, the concentration is with the new Dreadzone album because I've got 3 tracks on that, Flamingo being one of them. And I'm touring with Dreadzone. And then we've got quite a lot of festivals as well. We're looking to go and do the Madness shows in England. Okay. They're happening in June. And also, you never really know whether it's all going to go again at the moment. Yeah. So, so I'm just enjoying, what's definitely happening. Yeah. And I'm lucky, like my lockdown, like, I do a Blondie cover and then you're working with Don Letts. It's like, blimey.
Well, it's talent. I mean, it doesn't happen by accident. I mean, so what's the best way as we wrap up for people to find you and your radio show? Where can people hear that?
It's all on my website, Emily Capell, whatever. It's all on I know it's a bit naff, but I'm on all those social media. I'm not on Snapchat. I can't keep up with that. I don't know if you are. It's too much for me.
I can barely keep up with Twitter. It's like I don't, and I'm of the age where I feel like it's the way to communicate with people, but I just see what's going on in our world and feel like that's definitely added to everything that's going wrong with our world. Social media is just like the gasoline that is taking it over.
Yeah, I know, right? But I like when you said this, I'm so glad you said Zoom because I was like, I can't figure out how to use anything else. Like I need it to be Zoom. So,
well, yeah, it's amazing how it works. I don't know how it works, but thank you so much tonight.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for being so supportive and so interested. Like some people don't listen to lyrics and stuff, so thank you for being one of those people that does.
Well, thank you, Emily, for joining me. I hope you all enjoyed that as much as I did. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have much else to say after that one, other than go check out her website, emilycapell.co.uk. If you want to hear the new Dreadzone album, you can check them out at dreadzone.com. They've got a song called Dreadtown that Emily sings. I didn't hear it until after we talked, so unfortunately I didn't get to ask her much about it, but it's going to be one of the best songs you hear all year. Go check them out. Their album is coming out in April of 2022. Flamingo is on it, so is Dreadtown and one other that they did together. I hope you all have enjoyed this. I don't know when the next one will be, but please stay tuned. I got more coming. Be patient, subscribe, and thank you for listening.